While vacuuming the bedroom, Ethan accidentally knocked over a small box under the bed. As he crouched to pick it up, he noticed something else, a small, glossy business card tucked slightly out of sight. Curious, he picked it up and examined it. The card read, Adam Taylor, real estate consultant. It listed a phone number and an address for an office downtown. Ethan frowned. He didn't recognize the name or the card. It wasn't unusual for Lily to meet people in her line of work as a freelance graphic designer, but she typically mentioned her clients. And why would this card be under the bed? A strange feeling settled in Ethan's chest. He couldn't shake the thought that this was out of place, and he wasn't the type to ignore his instincts. For the rest of the day, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the card. He debated whether to bring it up with Lily, but ultimately decided against it. If it was nothing, he didn't want to risk starting an unnecessary argument. Instead, he tucked the card into his wallet and decided to do some quiet investigating. That evening, when Lily returned home, Ethan watched her closely. She was cheerful, acting as though nothing was amiss. Busy day? He asked casually as they sat down for dinner. Not too bad, Lily replied, smiling. Ran a few errands, stopped by a cafe to work for a bit. You know, the usual. Ethan nodded, keeping his tone light. Anyone interesting at the cafe? Not really, Lily said, taking a sip of wine. Just the same crowd. Ethan forced a smile, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. The next day, Ethan used his lunch break to look into the name on the card. A quick search online brought up a website for Adam Taylor, complete with a photo of the man himself. A sharply dressed, charming-looking guy in his mid-30s. Ethan's stomach tightened. The man looked like he belonged on the cover of a magazine, the kind of guy who seemed too perfect to be real. He jotted down the address listed on the website and decided to visit the office later that week. That night, Ethan's observations of Lily grew sharper. He noticed how she smiled at her phone, how quickly she put it down when he entered the room, and how vague her answers were when he asked about her day. On Wednesday, Ethan left work early and drove to the address listed on the card. It was a sleek, modern office building in the heart of downtown. Ethan parked across the street and watched the entrance for a while. After about 30 minutes, he saw a man exit the building, Adam Taylor. He looked just as polished in person as he did on his website, exuding confidence as he checked his phone and got into a luxury car. Ethan followed him discreetly, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. Adam drove to a high-end restaurant, where he met a woman in the parking lot. Ethan's heart sank as he recognized Lily. She was dressed in a way Ethan hadn't seen in a long time. Hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless, and wearing a dress he didn't even know she owned. They greeted each other with a kiss. Ethan's world cracked. Ethan stayed in his car, watching from a distance as Adam and Lily entered the restaurant together. He felt 1,000 emotions at once: rage, betrayal, sadness, and disbelief. He wanted to storm into the restaurant and confront them, to demand answers and make a scene. But something stopped him. Instead, he sat there for an hour, replaying everything in his head, before finally driving home. When Lily returned later that evening, she acted as though nothing had happened. "Hey, babe," she said, kissing him on the cheek. "How was your day?" Ethan forced a smile, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. Same old, same old. How about you?" "Pretty uneventful," she said, shrugging. "Just worked on a project and ran some errands." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Sounds nice." Lily didn't notice the tension in his voice. That night, as Lily slept peacefully beside him, Ethan stared at the ceiling, his mind racing. He couldn't ignore the truth anymore. She was cheating on him, but he wouldn't confront her, not yet. He needed more than what he'd seen at the restaurant. He needed undeniable proof, something she couldn't lie her way out of. Ethan decided he would catch them red-handed. Likes the video to support Ethan. Ethan woke the next morning with a newfound resolve. He couldn't unsee what had happened the night before, but instead of confronting Lily immediately, he decided to dig deeper. If she wanted to lie, he would let her, for now. But soon, her lies would catch up to her. Over the next few days, Ethan kept a closer eye on Lily than ever before. He took mental notes of her behavior, her phone usage, the calls she dismissed with a quick, "just a friend," and the errands she claimed to be running. She seemed more cautious now, like she could sense his growing suspicion. She never left her phone lying around anymore, always tucking it into her pocket or keeping it within reach. But Ethan had a plan. Using the business card, Ethan decided to test Adam Taylor's professionalism. One afternoon, during his lunch break, he called the number listed on the card. Adam Taylor, real estate consultant, came a confident voice on the other end. Ethan took a deep breath. "Hi, Adam. I'm looking for a realtor. A friend recommended you." "Of course," Adam replied smoothly. "I'd be happy to help. Are you looking to buy, sell, or invest?" Ethan kept the conversation professional, his tone calm despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. After a few minutes, he ended the call, his suspicions confirmed. Adam wasn't just some random stranger. He was polished, personable, and charismatic, exactly the type of man who could charm someone like Lily. That evening, Lily announced she was heading out to meet a friend for coffee. "Which friend?" Ethan asked, keeping his tone casual. "Claire," she said without hesitation. "We haven't caught up in a while." Ethan nodded, pretending to accept the answer. But as soon as Lily left, he grabbed his keys and followed her. He parked a few blocks away from their house and watched as Lily's car pulled into a small boutique hotel parking lot. His stomach dropped as he saw Adam waiting for her by the entrance. They exchanged a quick hug before walking inside together. Ethan clenched the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. When Lily returned home later that night, Ethan was waiting for her in the living room. "How was coffee with Claire?" he asked, his voice deceptively calm. Lily froze for a split second before plastering on a smile. "It was good. We had a lot to catch up on." Ethan nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. "That's funny because I called Claire earlier today, and she said she hasn't seen you in months." The color drained from Lily's face. What are you talking about?" Ethan leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "I'm talking about the boutique hotel. I'm talking about Adam Taylor." "I know, Lily." For a moment, she looked like she might deny it. But then her shoulders slumped, and tears filled her eyes. "Ethan, she stammered. "I didn't mean for this to happen." He shook his head, his voice filled with bitterness. "Don't you dare play the victim. How long has this been going on?" 2 months, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's jaw tightened. 2 months of lying to me. 2 months of sneaking around behind my back. "I'm so sorry," Lily sobbed. "It was a mistake. I didn't know how to stop it." Ethan stood abruptly, his voice rising. "You didn't know how to stop it? You could have chosen not to start it in the first place." As much as Ethan wanted to scream at Lily and demand answers, he realized that this wasn't the moment for a full-blown confrontation. She was emotional, and he needed to stay one step ahead. "I need time to think," he said coldly, walking toward the door. "Ethan, please," Lily started, but he cut her off. "Save it, Lily. Just save it." He grabbed his jacket and left the house, leaving her sobbing on the couch. Over the next week, Ethan took his investigation to the next level. He installed a small GPS tracker on Lily's car, downloaded a call logging app onto her phone while she was in the shower, and even checked her email for any correspondence with Adam. What he found only fueled his anger. There were dozens of text messages between Lily and Adam, filled with flirtation and promises to meet. There were emails confirming their rendezvous at hotels, carefully worded to avoid suspicion. Ethan documented everything, taking screenshots and saving them to a secure folder on his laptop. Ethan decided it was time to catch them in the act. Using the GPS tracker, he monitored Lily's movements closely. One Friday evening, the tracker indicated that her car was parked at a luxury hotel on the edge of town. Ethan grabbed his phone, his heart racing. He drove to the hotel and parked a short distance away, scanning the cars in the lot until he spotted Adam's. Taking a deep breath, he walked into the lobby and asked the receptionist for the room number registered to Adam Taylor. He was prepared for her to deny the request, but instead, she hesitated before quietly giving him the information. Ethan thanked her and made his way to the elevator, his pulse pounding in his ears. As he stood outside the door to Adam's room, Ethan felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. This was it, the moment he'd been dreading and anticipating all at once. He raised his hand and knocked. Ethan stood outside the hotel room door, his knuckles still tingling from the knock. The hallway was eerily quiet, the muted sounds of distant conversations and the soft hum of an air conditioner the only noise. After a moment, he heard shuffling on the other side of the door. A voice, Lily's voice, called out, "Just a second." Ethan's jaw tightened. The door opened slightly, and Lily's face appeared, her expression shifting from casual to sheer panic the moment she saw Ethan. "Ethan," she gasped, her voice shaky. What are you doing here?" Ethan pushed the door open with one hand, stepping inside before Lily could stop him. His eyes immediately locked onto Adam, who was sitting on the edge of the bed, his shirt unbuttoned and a glass of wine in hand. Adam stood quickly, his face paling as he realized who Ethan was. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Ethan growled, pointing a finger at Adam. "You think you can sneak around with my wife and get away with it?" "Ethan, please, don't," Lily began, but he cut her off. "Don't what, Lily? Don't confront the man you've been cheating on me with? Don't embarrass you?" Ethan's voice was sharp and biting. Adam held up his hands defensively. "Look, man, I think we should all just calm down." "Don't you dare tell me to calm down," Ethan shouted, stepping closer to Adam. "You've been sleeping with my wife, and you think you can talk your way out of this?" Lily tried to step between them, her voice pleading. "Ethan, stop. Please, let's just talk about this." "Talk?" Ethan scoffed, his eyes narrowing at her. "What's left to talk about? You've been lying to me for months, sneaking around, humiliating me. Do you even realize what you've done?" As the shouting continued, the commotion attracted attention. Guests in neighboring rooms opened their doors to investigate, peeking into the hallway to see what was happening. "What's going on?" someone whispered. "I think it's a cheating scandal," another murmured. Ethan's fury boiled over as he turned to Lily. "You've destroyed everything. Our marriage, our life. How could you do this to me?" Lily burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she sobbed. "I was lonely, and I made a mistake." "A mistake?" Ethan repeated, his voice dripping with venom. "This wasn't a mistake, Lily. This was a choice. Over and over again, you chose to betray me." While Ethan was focused on Lily, Adam took the opportunity to grab his jacket and make a break for the door. "Oh, no, you don't," Ethan snapped, blocking Adam's path. "You don't get to walk away from this." Adam hesitated, his expression a mix of fear and guilt. "Look, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't know things would get this messy." "Messy?" Ethan barked. "That's what you call this? You think you can sleep with another man's wife and call it messy?" Adam opened his mouth to respond, but Ethan held up a hand, his voice icy. "Get out. Now, before I do something we'll both regret." Adam didn't need to be told twice. He darted out of the room, his footsteps echoing down the hallway as he disappeared from sight. With Adam gone, Ethan turned back to Lily, his expression unreadable. She looked small and defeated, her shoulders slumped and her makeup smeared from crying. "Ethan, I'm sorry," she said softly, her voice breaking. "I know I've hurt you, but I love you. Please, we can fix this." Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "Fix this? How, Lily? How do you fix months of lies and betrayal? How do you fix the fact that every time I look at you, all I'll see is this?" "I'll go to therapy," she pleaded. "We'll go to counseling together. I'll do whatever it takes." He shook his head, his eyes filled with pain. "You think saying you're sorry will undo what you've done? You think I can ever trust you again?" Lily's tears fell harder as she realized the weight of his words. Ethan turned and walked toward the door, his heart heavy but his mind resolute. "Ethan, wait." Lily called after him, her voice desperate. He paused, his hand on the door handle, but he didn't turn around. "You made your choice, Lily. Now you get to live with it." With that, he left the room, his footsteps steady as he walked down the hallway, past the onlookers who quickly averted their gazes. The drive home was a blur for Ethan. His emotions churned, anger, sadness, disbelief, but above all, a sense of finality settled over him. The life he thought he had was gone, replaced by a painful reality he couldn't escape. When he arrived home, he sat in the driveway for a long time, staring at the house he had worked so hard to build. It didn't feel like home anymore. Lily came home late that night, her eyes red and puffy. She found Ethan sitting at the kitchen table, a half-empty bottle of whiskey in front of him. "Ethan," she began, her voice trembling. He held up a hand, stopping her. "I don't want to hear it, Lily. Pack a bag and go. I need space." She hesitated, then nodded, tears streaming down her face as she went upstairs to gather her things. Ethan stared at the bottle, the sound of her footsteps above him echoing in his mind. The days following the confrontation at the hotel were a blur of tension, regret, and unraveling emotions. Ethan tried to carry on as though life were normal, but nothing felt normal anymore. His trust, his love, his sense of security, all of it had been shattered. Lily had moved in with her sister after Ethan told her to leave. She called him almost every day, leaving messages that swung between tearful apologies and desperate pleas to talk. "Ethan," one voicemail began, her voice cracking. "Please, I know I've hurt you, but I love you. I made a mistake, a horrible mistake, and I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Please, just give me a chance to fix this." Ethan didn't respond. Instead, he deleted the messages as soon as they came in. The scandal quickly became a topic of conversation around town. The onlookers who had witnessed the scene at the hotel spread the story like wildfire, and soon, everyone seemed to know about Lily's affair and Ethan's dramatic confrontation. At work, Ethan noticed the whispers and sideways glances from his coworkers. One afternoon, his colleague and friend, Jeremy, pulled him aside. "Hey man," Jeremy said awkwardly, "I just wanted to check in. I've been hearing some stuff, and I'm sorry you're going through this." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Thanks, Jeremy. It's been a lot." Jeremy nodded sympathetically. "If you ever need to talk, I'm here. And don't let the office gossip get to you. People love to talk, but they don't know half the story." Ethan appreciated the sentiment, but the constant attention only added to his sense of humiliation. While Ethan dealt with the fallout in his personal life, Adam faced his own consequences. The gossip reached his professional circle, and several of his clients began canceling meetings, unwilling to work with someone whose personal life had become a public scandal. One day, Adam received an angry email from a longtime client. "I trusted you to handle my investments professionally, but I can't associate with someone who has no respect for personal boundaries. Consider this the end of our business relationship." Adam's charm and smooth demeanor weren't enough to salvage his reputation. One evening, Ethan sat alone in the house, surrounded by the silence that had become his new normal. He stared at the framed photos on the wall, happy memories of vacations, anniversaries, and family gatherings. Each one felt like a lie now. Unable to sit still any longer, he grabbed a box and began taking the photos down. One by one, he placed them in the box, along with other reminders of the life he had shared with Lily. When he was finished, the walls were bare, the house feeling emptier than ever. A week later, Lily showed up unannounced at the house. Ethan opened the door to find her standing on the porch, looking disheveled and desperate. "Ethan, please," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I just need to talk to you." He hesitated before stepping aside and letting her in. "I'm not here to fight," she said as they sat down in the living room. "I just need you to know how sorry I am. I made a terrible mistake, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But I love you, Ethan. I don't want to lose you." Ethan leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. "Do you even understand what you've done, Lily? You didn't just betray me. You destroyed everything we built together. How am I supposed to move past that?" "I don't expect it to be easy," she said, her voice trembling, "but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, anything." Ethan shook his head. "You say you love me, but love isn't supposed to feel like this. It's not supposed to hurt this much." Lily sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "Please, Ethan, don't give up on us." He looked at her for a long moment before standing. "I need more time, Lily. I can't give you an answer right now." She nodded reluctantly, wiping her tears as she left the house. The next day, Ethan scheduled a meeting with a divorce lawyer. He hadn't made up his mind entirely, but he needed to understand his options. The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Christine, Listen carefully as Ethan explained the situation. With the evidence you have, texts, emails, and witnesses, you're in a strong position, Christine said. You could push for a favorable settlement, especially if you want to keep the house. Ethan nodded, his emotions swirling. I just want to be done with this. I can't keep living like this. Lily's life had taken a steep downward spiral. Her sister, tired of her emotional breakdowns and constant drama, suggested she find another place to stay. You can't keep crying over Ethan, her sister said bluntly. You made your choices, Lily. Now you have to live with them. Lily moved into a small apartment, her once comfortable lifestyle replaced by a bare-bones existence. The weight of her regret was suffocating, and every day felt like a reminder of what she had lost. After weeks of soul-searching, Ethan made his decision. He invited Lily over one evening to deliver the news. As they sat across from each other, Ethan took a deep breath. Lily, I've thought about this a lot, and as much as I wish things could go back to the way they were, I know they can't. Her face crumpled. Ethan, please. He held up a hand, stopping her. I've filed for divorce. Lily burst into tears, pleading with him to reconsider, but Ethan's resolve was firm. I can't do this anymore, Lily, he said. I deserve better than this. Lily left Ethan's house in tears, her pleas for another chance falling on deaf ears. She had always known there was a possibility he wouldn't forgive her, but hearing him say the words aloud made it painfully real. As Ethan moved forward with the divorce, the fractures in their lives grew deeper, with consequences neither of them could escape. The fallout from the scandal continued to ripple through their social circles. Friends who had once invited Ethan and Lily to dinner parties and gatherings began to take sides, with most rallying behind Ethan. Cheating is unforgivable, one friend told him over coffee. You're doing the right thing by leaving her. Though the support was well-meaning, it only served to remind Ethan of the humiliation he had endured. Everywhere he went, he felt the weight of people's pity, their whispered conversations lingering after he walked past. Lily, meanwhile, faced judgment of a different kind. Old friends stopped answering her calls, and casual acquaintances barely acknowledged her when they crossed paths. Even at her new job as a receptionist at a local office, she noticed the way her co-workers avoided her during lunch breaks. She's the one who cheated on her husband, right? She overheard someone whisper in the break room. Lily pretended not to hear, but the shame was unbearable. While Lily struggled with the consequences of her actions, Adam had disappeared entirely. After their confrontation at the hotel, he avoided Lily's attempts to contact him. Calls went unanswered, texts were ignored, and eventually, his number was disconnected. She searched for him online, hoping for some sign of his whereabouts, but he had wiped his social media accounts clean. He was never going to stick around, her sister Jenna said when Lily mentioned it. He got what he wanted and moved on. You were just a fling to him, Lily. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. She had destroyed her marriage for a man who had discarded her without a second thought. Ethan finalized the divorce within a few months, the process expedited by Lily's lack of resources to contest the settlement. He kept the house and most of their shared assets, while Lily was left with little more than her personal belongings. With the legal battle behind him, Ethan focused on rebuilding his life. He poured his energy into his work, picking up new clients and taking on bigger projects. The sense of accomplishment gave him a purpose he hadn't felt in years. He also began reconnecting with friends he had distanced himself from during his marriage. You seem lighter, his friend Jeremy said one evening over drinks. I feel lighter, Ethan replied. It's like I can finally breathe again. Lily's life, on the other hand, continued to crumble. Her small apartment was a far cry from the home she had shared with Ethan, and her financial struggles made even basic necessities a challenge. The isolation was the hardest part. Nights stretched endlessly as she sat alone in her apartment, replaying the events of the past year in her mind. Every choice, every lie, every betrayal, it all led to this. She tried reaching out to Ethan once, sending him a long email filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness. Ethan, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am. Losing you is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Ethan read the email but didn't respond. He couldn't let himself be pulled back into her orbit. The day the divorce was finalized, Ethan felt a mix of emotions. Relief, sadness, and a sense of finality washed over him as he signed the papers. That evening, he sat alone in the house, the silence strangely comforting. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and toasted to his new beginning. "To moving forward," he said softly, the clink of the glass against the table echoing in the empty room. Desperate to find some sense of closure, Lily showed up unannounced at Ethan's house one evening. He answered the door, his expression calm but guarded. "Lily," he said, "what are you doing here?" I needed to see you," she said, her voice trembling. "I needed to apologize one last time." Ethan sighed, leaning against the doorframe. "You've already apologized, Lily, and I've already forgiven you." "But you haven't forgotten," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. "No, I haven't," he admitted, "and I never will. What you did, it broke something in me. Something I can't fix." Lily sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "I hate myself for what I did. I wish I could go back and undo it all." Ethan's voice softened, though his resolve remained firm. "I hope you can find peace, Lily, but we're done. We've been done for a long time." He closed the door gently, leaving her standing on the porch, her sobs echoing into the night. As the months turned into a year, the contrast between Ethan's life and Lily's became more pronounced. Ethan had found closure, peace, and a sense of purpose. His connection with Claire had deepened, and while they were taking things slow, he felt hopeful about where it might lead. Lily, on the other hand, was left with the ruins of her decisions. She had lost her marriage, her reputation, and the comfortable life she had taken for granted. The weight of her choices was a burden she carried alone. Thank you for listening to the story to the end. Please like, share your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel.